Have you ever wondered why a pit bull is called a pit bull? It doesn't look like a pit, and it certainly doesn't look like a bull. Well, pit bulls were first bred in England in the 1800s, and they were bred to fulfill a gambling sport. Horrible sport. I hate to even think of it nowadays. But they would put a pit bull in an enclosed environment, a pit, with a bull. And then they would fight until the death. And a pit bull would win half the time, and a bull would win half the time. Now, the bull outweighs a pit bull by 25 to 1. A pit bull weighs typically 40 to 50 pounds. The kinds of bulls they would put in the ring with them would typically weigh 1,000 pounds or more. And so you got 1,000 pounds against a 40 to 50 pound dog. How could a dog ever win, even half the time? Well, the answer is the pit bull doesn't give up. He keeps fighting until he's critically injured, literally until he can't move or until he dies. But he keeps fighting. And consequently, he wins half the time. When we think of persistence, we tend to think of something like that pit bull that just doesn't give up. No, it really isn't that. In fact, most people think of persistence as hitting a wall, falling down, getting up, hitting it again and again and again. And Einstein defined that as insanity because you're not changing anything. Okay, what we look at is we're going to talk about creative persistence. Creative persistence, you hit that wall, you fall down on the ground, but when you get up, you're going to do one of several things. You're either going to climb over the wall, get around the wall, get under the wall, or you're going to blow the wall up. That's creative persistence. You're going to find a way through that wall, over it, around it, under it, or blow it up, okay? What we want to focus on now is creative persistence. There is one personality type, namely a lion, has a built-in preponderance toward persistence. When a lion fails, if they really want to achieve something, they will keep going. A professor at University of California in LA, UCLA, she was a professor of entrepreneurship, and she was asked in an interview, what do successful entrepreneurs have in common? And she thought, she said, one trait. They are incredibly persistent. They just don't give up. And yet Einstein said, trying something over and over and over again without changing anything, that's insanity, and it is. So how can we have creative persistence? The good news is you don't have to be a lion. Creative persistence, like all the other strategies we talk about, relates to skill sets. Anybody, golden retriever, otter, lion or beaver, or someone who even flatlines, they can have creative persistence if they learn the skill. I call it the $1 billion difference. When I was with American Telecast, we had one particular project, had two major celebrities as our spokespersons, and it was a half an hour program length commercial, or we call them infomercials. And we thought when we got it back home, I went ahead and created it, and then I took it back to our offices in Philadelphia. And we looked at this and we go, holy mackerel, this is a grand slam home run. This sucker is going to be on the air for at least 3 years. Will probably generate somewhere between $200 and $500 million in sales. Man, we've really hit it on this one. Well, we go ahead, we put it on the air, we test it, and it doesn't hit it over the fence. In fact, the results are just mediocre. And because both celebrities had guarantees written into their contract, if we roll them out, if we roll this commercial out, we're going to have to pay millions of dollars to each of these celebrities. But it wasn't good enough to take that kind of gamble. So we went to each of the celebrities and we asked them to give us a break. Give us an extra 6 months to do some additional testing and make some adjustments to the commercial. And we were able to get them to agree to it. And we then made two changes. First, we made one, and that helped a little bit. And then we made the other one, and it was the combination of two changes that we made. And it took us 6 months of testing to do that. But the result was that commercial was the longest running commercial campaign we ever had. It didn't last for the normal 3 years to 5 years. It has now been on the air for 25 consecutive years. It has produced not hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. It has produced billions of dollars in sales, okay? Why? Because we didn't give up. We were able to persuade our celebrities to give us a little bit more time, and they persisted and we persisted. And in that persistence, we came up with two changes that took a failure and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar winner. Okay, that's the power of creative persistence. So let's look at creative persistence. Let's define it, and let's see how we can bring it into your life in the areas that are most important. You don't apply this to everything, but you apply it to the things that are really, truly important to you. Okay, we're going to actually learn the techniques that Thomas Edison learned. He was awarded more than 1,000 US patents. That's amazing. Most inventors are fortunate if they get 3 or 5, 1,000. And it wasn't his brilliant education. Okay, so what's the first thing he did? First thing he did is he defined any dream he had. We'll take the light bulb. He defined that in writing. And so that was typically 1 page in his journal. In the case of the light bulb, it was 1 page. He drew what he thought it might look like. And then he clearly defined what he thought it would be. That it would be an incandescent light, that would be long-lasting, that would be economical, so it would be affordable to everybody, and it would be safe. It wasn't going to cause fires, or it was really going to be competing against kerosene. At the time, most people lit their homes, their factories, their farms. Everything was lit with either oil or kerosene. And so that's what he was competing against. So that, he defined it in writing, drew a little picture. Now, for a dream, when you're going after a dream or something really bold, I encourage you not only to define it clearly, that's what the vision mapping process is all about, but that you draw a little picture. And why a picture? You draw a picture just like Edison did, because it fires up the visual side of your mind. So that whenever he thought about light bulb, he didn't think about a long tube like we have for fluorescent lights. He thought about what we picture as a light bulb. And he could have that picture in his mind, and he could keep it there, and it was a constant reminder of what he wanted to accomplish. Okay, so define it in writing. Number 2, and this is probably the single most important thing he did, and it is truly genius. He wrote out the broad ramifications of succeeding at that. And so for the light bulb, the actual idea page, or what defining his dream, was 1 page. Broad ramifications were 9 pages in his journal. He knew that's how important it was. Okay, so I'm going to just condense it so you can see it. Broad ramification number 1, if he creates a light bulb, every home, factory, farm, and office building in America is going to want to buy light bulbs from Edison. So he's going to sell millions and millions of light bulbs in America. And however, he's also going to have to solve a problem to do that. He's going to have to generate electric power and get that into the homes, the factories, the farms, the office buildings, so that their light bulbs can plug into something, right? It won't work if you don't have electricity flowing into those places. So now he pictures himself as owning electricity and selling electric power to every home, factory, farm, and office building in the United States. And as long as they've got electric power for their lighting, why not create tools, machines, and appliances that also run off that electricity that's now flowing into the buildings? So he's got the light bulbs, he's got the cell of electricity, he's got all these different things like the phonograph, like the tape recorder, like the motion picture projector. He's got all those things that he can invent that can be run on electricity. Now, as long as he's doing all of that for every home, factory, farm, and office building in America, why not go north to Canada? Why not go south to Mexico? So now he's doing the same thing for those countries. And as long as he's going south, let's go to Central America and South America. And now he's supplying all that. And as long as he's doing the Western Hemisphere, let's go to Europe. Let's go to Asia. Let's go to Africa. Let's light the whole world, supply power to the whole world, create inventions that the whole world can use, and now you're really into something. So that was basically his 9 pages of ramifications. So let's take a couple is pretty tired of each other. The spouses are fighting and they're not getting on. And in the generation today where everything is about instant gratification, hey, we tried marriage, we're 3 years into it, we got 2 kids, or we're 5 years into it, we have 2 kids, but this isn't working. I want to go look for somebody new. Now, if you had the broad ramifications written up about that divorce, okay, number 1, broad ramification. If I give up on this marriage, I'm setting an example to my children that when the going gets tough, you give up. And Edison had a little different concept. He said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And but number 1, I set a horrible example. I send out a message to my kids that marriage really isn't permanent, that it's something that, it's disposable. Do I really want to send that image? How's it going to affect my children in their youth? And then how is it going to affect them in their marriages when the going gets tough? What's going to happen with their children? Okay, now I have failed at marriage, so I've seen the consequences. And the consequences are horrible. Potentially they're horrible. And it's not that every marriage can make it. I mean, if there's abuse, that can't be fixed, then you run away from that. So I'm not saying that all marriages need to be saved. But what I am saying, if people would write out the broad ramifications of succeeding and the broad ramifications of failure, we would have a much lower divorce rate. Now, the next thing Edison did, and this was really smart, he was a very smart man. The next thing he did is he implanted his vision in the minds of a handful of people. And these are people outside of his research team. He would implant the vision in his wife. He would give it to a couple of close friends, to bankers, and so on. He had to help them gain that same vision that he had. Why? Because when he felt like giving up, when he was done, he couldn't go any further, they'd say, come on, you can go, we can do this. So he would share those. And that's really important. When you have a vision, go ahead and share it with people that are close to you, that are going to encourage you. If you have a real negative friend, don't share it with them, because they'll always say, hey, I knew it wouldn't work, I told you so. And there's one personality type that tends to do that, and I won't get into that. Okay, next thing he did. He expected, and this is a big one, and I'm gonna cut this off now, but I'll at least tell you what it was, and then we'll deal with this one in the next session. But he expected failure. He expected criticism. He expected that not only within a project, but failure within his team members. And we'll show you how he dealt with that, because how he dealt with it was genius. Do you know that when you learn Edison's ways of dealing with failure and with criticism, you no longer have to fear criticism. You no longer have to fear failure. In fact, you'll find out that failure and criticism are two of your best friends and best teachers when you learn the right way to deal with them. So that's what we'll look at in the next session.